Hello surfers, welcome to week 13, and at this point it's probably a lot like this. Hopefully not that bad, but it is down to the home stretch. It reminds me of this joke about these three guys who are privates in the Army, and it's their first time having to parachute, right? And so they go up into the plane and they're all kind of jazzed up as to who's going to be the best at this. The first one tells the other two, "Hey man, I'll bet you the rest of our week's pay that I'll be the last one to pull my chute." And the other two dudes are like, "No way, man. I'm going to show the new LT. I'm going to be the one that does it last. No way, man. I'm going to do it last." They argue like that until it's time to jump. Out they go. And they start out at 10,000 feet. They get to about 7, and the first guy's like, "We don't make that much money to begin with. I'm out." Pulls his chute. The next two are a little different. They keep battling back and forth, back and forth. It gets to about 3,000 feet and neither is pulled. Second one's antagonizing the third. "Hey, pull the chute, pull the chute, you pull the chute." Right now they're at about 2,000 feet, and finally the second dude's like, "That's it, I'm out." Psh. Right? And at this point, he's yelling at the guy, "Pull the chute, you won." And the guy's like, "Nah, man, 800, 600, 500 feet. Pull the chute, you moron." "Nah, I'm good." 200 feet. "Pull the chute." "Nah, I'm fine." Within 50 feet, he's like, "Pull the chute." He's like, "Nah, I'm good." 20 feet. "Pull the chute." "No, I can jump from here." Point being, don't be like the guy who refuses to pull the chute and or try to jump from there, right? You're too far away. The momentum you'll have picked up could lead to something ugly in the end. So, moral of the joke, aside from the awesome punchline, is work hard through this week. If I can be of help, please let me know. Please reach out. We can set up Zoom chats or whatever that you want, and we'll work on it together. Let's take a look at what you have this week in the wonderful and weird world of wave pools. This week we're going to take a look at the new wacky weird world of wave pools. All the alliteration aside, what you're looking at here is a picture of Tom Curren, multi-time world champion, surfing in old Steel Belt City, Allentown, Pennsylvania, on a wave pool in 1976. Even then, the dream for perfection and accessibility for everybody, even those of us trapped in landlocked Western PA, was alive and well. Curren famously surfs this wave in the middle of a contest, gets to the inside, decides he doesn't like the ultimate perfection of it, sort of takes out some of the hunt and thrill he feels, gets off his board and leaves the contest. But more notable is the idea that even then, they had not just the technical capability, but there was the interest in developing this sort of hope at a potentially authentic experience. In fact, in recent years, it's grown so much that Surfline, often the purveyor of surf guides and travel and all things waves, now offers a travel guide for the best man-made surf spots everywhere in the world, including those that are still under plan. I would definitely take a look at this before you engage in the other sources on the week for your response, only because they're kind of interesting to look at. They offer you a brief blurb about the park, its cost, and usually comes with some sort of video piece too, so that you can actually see the wave in action. And there's a bunch on here. But we've moved past the point of good old Tom Curren in Allentown, Pennsylvania, to now these are things that are building up all over the world. And what you're going to find this week is, as you look at these wave pools, they're increasingly being built with resort capabilities in mind. For example, when you begin to look at the DSRT Wave Resort, you'll see that the article is going to note, right, the potential for condos and apartments, and it treats it as an actually resort destination, like a resort hotel, right, built around surfing and golf. An odd pairing, but nevertheless, you've got a big budget, high dollar influence and interest now in these wave pools, right? So I've given you some things to sort of look at, including this one, which details, for those of you who are a little science-minded, the science behind the most famous of the wave pool waves, Kelly Slater's Surf Ranch.
and this is a brief little video that walks you through the science as to how that thing works. It's not something that you have to respond to on the week, but it is of interest if you're interested in this kind of stuff at all. So you might take a look at that. Definitely check out the Surfline Wave Pool Guide. This is just a second ancillary source that they've got their own listing of top 8 wave pools, right? It's even shorter than Surfline's. Red Bull kind of runs through 8 of them. Some of the same idea. There's a little blurb and then there's a video. And this is the famous Kelly Slater Surf Ranch, right? Which the other one details how the waves work. So what do you have to respond to? This week, you're going to read your first scholarly article in entirety from Jess Ponting. He writes this entitled Waves of Authenticity. Ponting is one of the preeminent surf scholars in the academic world at large. He has started a number of foundations that sort of catalog and further this sort of research. And he is, no surprise, the first one to write on sort of the wave pool experience. So give this a read as a way to sort of ground yourself in what is being discussed and what is ultimately being argued for, right? Read the whole thing. It's 17 pages long, and of the number of chapters I've given you over the semester, this is probably not the longest thing. Parts of it are a little bit difficult or thick or heavy perhaps, as it is a scholarly article written for a scholarly trade journal. But as is true with all scholarly articles, the best thing to do is to sort of move through looking for the things that you can connect with and understand. Don't read it as if there's going to be a quiz on every last sentence. Instead, read it for a larger understanding as to the discussion and maybe some of the details. So you have to read that, Ponting's Waves of Authenticity. Then you have to check out Weird Waves, the Wave Pool Edition. This is actually a little video from Dylan Graves, a pro surfer, who made this series of YouTube spots that are all about the different weird waves that are around in America and the world at large. They're not all wave pools. This episode happens to feature solely on wave pools and the discussion of the experience as to whether or not it's real. So in comparison to the scholarship from Ponting, here you have a professional surfer's experience, and you also got to remember this is sort of an industry-produced spot here, so they're not going to probably be as critical of it as maybe somebody who's doesn't have money in it involved, kind of like the way that surf magazines work. So you got Ponting, Waves of Authenticity, Dylan Graves and Weird Waves, right? And then you've got this last, which is actually an article from Surfline. A guy named Lewis Samuels writes about Kelly's wave pool, and sort of the same vein as Ponting, has the wave pool desensitized us? Is it making perfection less compelling? Is it ruining the authenticity of the wave that we know so well? So those 3 you must detail. Then there's a series of others. There's an article here on the Myrtle Beach wave pool coming, and in fact there is, if you're around long enough, there is a projected $41 million surf and skate park with amphitheater coming to Myrtle Beach, much like the DSRT resort, right? There's an article on that. There's an article on the DSRT, which we looked at, and there's an article on Kelly Slater and him buying up some land in the Coachella Valley to build yet another surf ranch and use some of the surrounding area as a resort destination. Pretty short. It's not hard. Most inertia stuff is going to be pretty short, right? So we're not looking at these other sources as being really time consuming, but rather what you'll want those for, we can look at in the response guide. So you've got Ponting's Waves of Authenticity. Address that. You've got Samuels, Has Kelly's Wave Pool Desensitized Us? Address that. And you've got Dylan Graves' Weird Waves, right? Address that. Then after you've kind of addressed those in terms of the parts you find interesting, why you find them interesting, right? Then you should attempt to support or critique the wave pool resort development, leaning on these sort of core works and any of the relevant details in those remaining ones that you wish. You could choose some of the things from the Myrtle Beach article to support your opinion, the Kelly Slater and Coachella Valley, or the DSRT wave pool resort, any of those that you want to sort of help make your opinion informed as you argue or try to support or critique wave pool development. Ideally, you would consider authenticity in your opinion, right? Since this is kind of what we're grounding it in and kind of what everybody else is discussing here in those three sources. But then as you look at some of the money and some of the details and some of the projected outcomes, you write your own little support or critique. So your response has kind of two parts. The typical response where you are trying to tell me what you found interesting out of these three sources and why. The very best responses will make connections to other works as possible. Try to find an angle to your response to give it some life, to give it some unity, instead of just sort of moving source by source. But at least with these three, if that's what you have to do to get through them, you can. What's interesting and why, and what is it, how does it speak to you? And then after you've sort of addressed those three, using one or two or three or any of these combinations of the remaining ones, support or critique wave pool development. What do you think? Is it an authentic response? Is it an inauthentic response? Is it a good idea, bad idea, why? Right? Maybe it's both. Up to you. Due by November 15th, 11:59 p.m. November 15th, 11:59 p.m. That should about carry you through. You've got this one, and this one, and then using these as you will to sort of complete your support or critique of the wave pool development. And again, just check these out for context, right? Look at some of the different ones, see what you think. Maybe look at a little bit of the science behind the wave. But these are the three that you have to address as you complete your response. That's it.
Okay, so you got your three main guys, and you know what you can kind of do with the others to support your point as you try to argue for the wave pool and its possibilities. So, some pretty interesting stuff. Keep in mind you also have your Tapping the Source paper coming in, so please keep an eye on that. Don't miss it. And if you want to meet about that, I'm happy to. So good luck, happy writing, happy viewing, happy reading, and please be in touch if you need help. Thanks.